I don't think I've ever sung this before, except in the congregation. Tempted and tried with all faith, wonder why it should be thus all the day long, while there are others living about us, never more rested, going the road. Father alone will know all about it. I can't keep up. Father alone will understand why. Cheer up, my brother, live in the sunshine. We'll understand it all by and by, when death has come and taken our loved one. It leaves our home so lonely and drear. Then do we wonders why others prosper, living so year after year? Father alone will know all about it. Father alone will understand why. Cheer up, my brother, live in the sunshine. We'll understand it all by and by. I could never find time. Good. I think I did that 100 years ago. Maybe. I'd like you to open your Bibles to the book of Samuel. We're going to look at the 14th chapter. We're going to go 14th chapter through or 17th chapter. This is going to be a storytelling. I had Barbara to preach and try to teach me some things before I left. And I told her, I said, it's so much tonight. I said, I put it up there, but I don't know what to do with it. Don't know whether I can remember it. And I know that I can. But what you do, and I used to for years that I preached, and I was strictly an outline preacher with 3 points, 4-point, 5-point message, subtopic, and just come down the line. And I don't preach that way anymore. When I came here, God changed my heart, changed my mind, and it scares me something fierce. Because the devil tells me before every service, you're going to get up there and make a fool out of yourself. And I don't mind that part of it. But he says you're going to get up there and not have anything to say, and you're not going to be able to remember it. And that's all right. So if I'll get up here sometimes and it's just that way, I'll just have you stand, we'll pray and go back to the house. That'd be all right? It has to be. If that's all I can do, we'll just have to abide with it. We're under law. We're dealing with the first king, Saul. He was selected. The problem was that Israel wanted a king like all the rest of the other nations. And God told Samuel, said, don't get upset. They have not rejected you. Now this tore Samuel up. He was prophet priest between Israel and God. God would speak to him, he'd speak to Israel, Israel would speak to him, he'd speak to God. And so Samuel took it personal. And God told Samuel, said, don't take it that way. They've not rejected you, but they have rejected me. They don't want me as their king. They want an earthly king. They want a man that they can see that can lead them. And so we've been preaching along the lines of the first king, Saul, and the different things. Last week we ended up with this. I want to touch it a little bit and we'll go on. That Saul had failed in everything that God gave him something to do. He'd end up failing. Kind of sounds like us, don't it? We make a mess of things, yet we try. But what Saul was doing, he was taking the lead instead of letting God do the leading. God would speak to Samuel, and Samuel would tell him what God wanted, and he would just about do that much that God wanted him to do. So he was half-hearted. And if we're not careful, there's a certain part of us that's got some pride. And you guys and you ladies too have all been around people on the job that if somebody gets promoted, you better look out. You had to get you a number 3 wash tub to put their head in. Have you ever been around those kind of folks? Amen. I have. And then there are a select few that if they get promotion, they never change. They're still the same individual when they were nothing. So God chose Saul from the tribe of Benjamin, and it was the smallest tribe of Israel. But he was the tallest man of all the Israelites. He was a head taller than everybody else. But an utter failure. He had a son named Jonathan. This is in the 14th chapter. This is where I'm going to hit Jonathan a little and we'll go on to back to Saul again. In the 14th chapter it talks about Jonathan and his great victory. Now, where we're at here, the Philistines had taken all the blacksmiths away from Israel. And they were letting the blacksmiths do all their work. They was not paying them anything. They were getting free labor. Now, in order to have swords and spears and things that you fight in war with, all the blacksmiths was taken away from them. And so they had nobody to make swords and spears. There were 2 people that had a sword, and that was Saul and his son Jonathan. And so we see that the Philistines, they come against them, they got them surrounded. And so all of Israel was upset, so Jonathan told his armor bearer, said, I want you to come with me. Daddy didn't know, none of the other people knew, so they went out and they said, let's go down and spy out the Philistines. So they went down in a ravine, and Jonathan said, I have an idea. Said, this is what we're going to do. He said, we're going to expose ourselves to them. We're going to let them see us. And if they say, stay down there, we know that the Lord's not in us coming over here. But when we step out and they see us, if they say, come up hither, we know that God hath delivered them into our hands. So when they exposed themselves, the Philistines said, come up hither. And so it said they climbed hand and foot and they went to where they was. It was about a half-acre plot. And when they got there, it says that Jonathan, he went through them. Man, he was slaughtered as he went, and said that his armor bearer had his back. Whoever was that he wouldn't kill him, that was coming up behind his armor barrier, killed him. Well, God sent a great quaking, and the earth began to tremble and began to quake, and it was felt back where Saul was at. And so Saul, he couldn't understand it because they didn't have weapons to fight with. But Jonathan had the victory because God gave him the victory. Then Saul realized that what was going on, and he made a statement. And this statement was that if any man would eat before the sun went down that evening, then that person would be killed. And so in the midst of this, he sought God. And he asked God, God, are you in this? Are you going to let me have victory in the battle? And it says that God did not answer him. So he decided that he'd just take matters in his own hands. When the earth began to quake, they told him, they said, Jonathan is over there. So they took off. So the group that joined Jonathan, they were killing Philistines left and right, and having a great victory. But they wore themselves completely out. And so it says that Jonathan and them, when they were walking through the woods, that there was honey dripping from the tree, and there was honey on the ground, and that Jonathan took his sword and he dipped it in some honeycomb, and he touched it to his lips and took a bite of it. And when it did, it said that his eyes brightened. Now what it means by that is, he got him some strength. You know what it is to be hungry, wore out, and you get some sweet. I've been a sweet eater all my life. How about you? I can remember when we lived at Wycliffe, I'm a chocoholic. And I would swear off of it. Not going to do it anymore. Sometimes I can make it 2 weeks, sometimes 3 weeks. Where Vicky's a manager, I'd go to that store, I'd give me 20 Hershey bars. Park in the dark in the store, and I would eat them like a drug addict. Had to have it. We have a box that's on our refrigerator. When our grandkids were little, we call it Pabst box. When Big Boy was little, he would go in the kitchen, wouldn't say a word. He'd look up, look back down. I said, what are you looking for, buddy? He'd look at the Pabst box and look back down. I said, what do you want? He'd look up, look back down. I said, you want to get the Pabst box? He'd look up, I'd get it, put it down on the floor, and it was full of candy. Up until we moved here, or sometimes back, I don't remember when, my taste changed. When I had the car wreck, I eat things that I've never ate in my life. Things that I always liked and ate, I have no taste for them now. So God changed my taste. And I might eat a little bit of candy, and I might eat a piece of cake, or something like that. But I'm not a sweetaholic as I was. And so up until I had the wreck, I would eat at least 8 candy bars a day. At least 8. So you can, when I would eat it, I tell Barbara, you know, when people are diabetic, they say they get shocky. That's what I used to tell her. I think I'm getting shocky. I need something to kind of fire me up. And so Jonathan, he was probably getting shocky. He needed something sweet, and God provided it. And when he did that, the other people, they were not with him when he snuck out of camp. And his father Saul didn't know that he was out of camp. But they had heard Saul say, whoever eats before sundown, we're going to kill him. And this was a problem. He didn't know. Now, they were all hungry, so they took off. And the sheep, the ox, the cattle, they just slaughtered them in the field. They didn't cook them. They just jumped in and began to eat raw meat with the blood in it. Now, God had commanded them through the Mosaical law that they could not eat the blood. And they did it. So word came back to Saul, and Saul said, who has caused this great thing? He said, people have sinned. Go get you an ox, go get you a sheep and bring it up here, kill it, skin it, we'll cook it, and you can eat it. Don't do it with the blood. Saul seeks out and asks, who did this thing? And it says nobody answered. None of the army answered. Then he said, well, I'm going to take my son Jonathan, and I'm going to take me. Y'all cast lots and see who you're for. Nobody cast lots. Then he said, I'm going to kill Jonathan because Jonathan ate when he wasn't supposed to. And the men that was there said, we're not going to let you do this because after he has given us such a great victory, we're not going to allow you to kill him. And the Bible says, and that day the people saved Jonathan. You won't find it very often that people will stand up against a king, but right's right, wrong's wrong. He was doing the will and the work of God. All right, in the 15th chapter, this is Saul when he comes to the end of being a king. And that would have been very simple if he had been obedient to God. But being half right is like being half wrong. So he was going to do part of what God asked him, and he was going to justify the other part that God asked him. So when Israel came out of the land of Egypt, when they entered in to Canaan lands, the Amalekites, they treated them terrible. So God tells Saul, I want you to take vengeance upon the Amalekites. And I want you to go in and utterly destroy them. You kill every man, you kill every woman, you kill every child, you kill every baby that's nursing. I want you to kill every animal, and I want you to leave nothing alive. Now, this generation, I hear people say, God is love. He is. But, buddy, He is a vengeful God. Right. They were under law and not under grace. I'm so glad I'm under grace. Aren't you? Amen. Man, God is now going to take a severe hand. So here they go down. They fight the battle. They have a great slaughter. But one of the things, the first thing that he didn't do, the king, Agag, he did not kill him. He captured him. And he put him in the group. Instead of killing all the animals, it says that he kept the best sheep. This is in the 9th verse. He kept the best sheep, the oxen, of the fatlings and the lambs, and all that was good. He would not utterly destroy everything. God wanted obedience. That's all God was looking for. If God says something for us to do, that's all He expects us to do, is be obedient unto Him in all areas of our life. I know God has given me messages in the ministry He's given me that I absolutely did not want to preach. There have been times that I have avoided preaching that particular message. But somewhere along the line, God got me whipped up, beat up, scratched up to where He really got in my heart, and it was to the place, if you don't do what I'm telling you to do, you're not going to be blessed. There's nothing that you can do or lay your hands on. So eventually I had to come to that. That's why I said I thank God we're under grace. If I'd been under law, He'd probably just shot a lightning bolt on me and fried me right there. Everybody said amen. How many lightning bolts would you have had in your lifetime? I'd hate to try to number them. There's not enough pencil and paper for me to do it. In the 10th verse, now this is after it's over with. 10th verse, then came the word of the Lord unto Samuel. Now remember, God, Samuel, Saul. This is the way the message goes. God was not speaking directly to the king. He was speaking to the priest, prophet, Samuel. And so, in the 11th verse, this is what God said, and it repented me that I have set Saul to be king, for he has turned back from following me, and hath not performed all my commandments. And it grieved Samuel, and he cried until the Lord all night. Now this is a man of God. Saul was not a man of God. Saul was a man that was strong-willed, stubborn, hard-headed, fleshly, that wanted to do things his way. Now, if you're close to God and things happen, sin happens, it will break your heart. I promise you. If it happens to one of your brothers and sisters, you will shed a tear over it. If it happens to some member in your family, you will shed a tear over it. So Samuel is heartbroken because God did not want a king. Samuel did not want a king, but the people wanted a king. And then it goes on down to where that Samuel comes to Saul, and in the 13th verse, and Samuel came to Saul, and Saul said unto him, Blessed be thou of the Lord, I have performed the commandment of the Lord. Isn't that something? Lied like a dog. He didn't think that Samuel knew, but God knew when he did it. Samuel done talked to the man of God and said, I'm sorry that I even appointed him as king. And now old Saul said, buddy, I'm glad to see you. Whoo, boy, this has been great. I've done everything that God wanted me to do. Boy, this has been a blessing. 14th verse, and Samuel said, What meaneth this bleating of the sheep in my ears and the lowing of the ox that I hear? He said, well, if you did everything that God wanted you and told you to do, why am I hearing oxen bawl, and why do I hear the sheep bleating? I thought that God told you to kill everything. Now the old boy's caught between a rock and a hard place. Things are going to start happening that he didn't think. You might lie to me, and I might lie to you. We might boast of what we have done and what we're going to do. But one thing about it, we will not deceive God. And we will give an account to God. If we've completed the task, God knows it. If we've been disobedient, God knows it. So God already knew when he did. He told Samuel. Samuel went to him and he said, you're lying. Because I wouldn't hear any sheep and I wouldn't hear any oxen if you had been obedient unto God. Now, 15th verse. Now, he's going to justify what he's doing. You can justify anything you want to. And Saul said, they have brought them from the Amalekites. Now, I want you to look at that word. They. Meaning, it's not me. They. Who's in charge? It's kind of like Obama. How'd you find that out? I heard it when you did on the news. Three days ago he said, well, I have already known all these things. And I thought, well, you learned these things on the news. Now you come and say you already knew all these things. And he said, I don't even watch TV. He watches Fox News. He's always talking about Fox News. Justification. They have brought them from the Amalekites, for the people spared the best. There it is. The people did it. They spared the best of the sheep and of the oxen to sacrifice unto the Lord thy God, and the rest we have utterly destroyed. Man, we went through there, those people did, and they found every animal with a defect in him, anything that had a spot or a blemish, and they utterly destroyed them. Now, God, you know that's what you wanted. And they kept and brought the best so that we could take and offer a sacrifice unto you. Now, lying is lying. But now, that done got past a lie. He's lying to God. And God had him caught red-handed. So he lays it off onto the people. And then in the, I want to skip on down to the 20th verse. And Saul said to Samuel, Yea, I have obeyed the voice of the Lord, and have gone the way which the Lord sent me, and have brought Agag, the king of Amalek, and have utterly destroyed the Amalekites. Now what did God tell him to do? Kill every man, woman, child, babies that are sucklings, every animal, kill everything, nothing is to be left alive. Now he said, I've done everything that you've wanted me to do. I've done everything that you've asked me to do. I brought the king. Now is that what God really told him? Go down there and get the king. Go down there and pick out the best animals that you might sacrifice them unto me. Boy, some people got guts, haven't they? I mean, he was a gritty rascal, standing up there to the man of God, telling him what God said that he said, and Samuel already knew what God said that he said. 20th verse. And Saul said unto Samuel, Yea, 21st verse I mean. You remember up earlier it said, the people, look at the 20th verse. But the people took. He's still not going to claim it. He's not claiming ownership for not obeying God. But the people took of the spoil, sheep and oxen, the chief of things that should have been utterly destroyed to sacrifice unto the Lord thy God in Gilgal. And Samuel said, Hath the Lord as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices, in obeying the voice of the Lord? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to hearken than the fat of rams. 23rd verse, For rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft, and the stubbornness is as iniquity and idolatry. Because thou hast rejected the word of the Lord, he hath also rejected thee from being king. Final, through, out. God ain't going to take it no more. Big boy, you are caught. I have allowed you, I have given you time after time after time. Now remember, we're living under law. The law has no mercy. The law has no grace. Have you ever been caught running 60, 75 in a 50-mile-an-hour zone? And the Mr. Policeman comes up there and he says to you, May I have your driver's license, your registration, proof of insurance, please? And you say, I'm going to talk my way out of this. Forget. Give up. And then we say the dumbest thing. He hands us a ticket, and we say, Thank you, sir. But after you leave, you don't say thank you. I have been caught. I have never had a speeding ticket in my life. Would you believe it? Have never. I've outrun a many a lawman. But I'll tell you what I did. We were headed to St. Louis. We were late to catch a plane. And I had slowed down to 85, 90 miles an hour. Just slowed down. And here was a state trooper in the other lane. And I seen him brake lights come on, and I was probably a half a mile, and he had to go on down before he could turn. I was about half a mile from the exit. Crow hit the exit. Saved, preaching, loving the Lord. Hit the exit. There was a filling station over to the left. I cut in front of it. I got out, and he pulled in behind. He said, when you get done with there, I'll be parked here. Come over here. Barbara said, you've had it now. She's had a bunch of it. Never had it. Went up and sat down in the car. He said, do you know how fast you was going? I said, yes. I said, I had slowed down. I'm going to lie to him. He got you dead right. So, I mean, you've had the lick. Just be up front with him. He said, where are you going? I said, I'm late for a flight, trying to get there. Got people waiting on me. He said, what do you do? I said, I'm an evangelist, I'm a preacher. He said, oh my Lord. He said, why do all you preachers drive like idiots? I said, sir, I don't know. But I said, I'm guilty. I promise you. He said, well, I'm saved, but I'm about half backslidden. This is state truth. And he said, I hadn't paid my tithes in a good while. And I'm going to let you go. But if I ever catch you coming by here 1 mile an hour over the speed limit, I am getting you. I said, I sure do appreciate it. And as soon as I pulled back on the road, hammered down. He went the other way. You say you're saved in doing that? Well, what about you? Are you goody-goody two-shoes and just obey everything jot and tittle? No! That's why I said I'm glad we're living under grace. Amen. Amen. Instead of law. Because the law just says guilty, 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 guilty. Bunch of rules, regulations, rituals, guilty, guilty, guilty. Grace says, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And that's what happens to me when I get in the car. I know not what I do. But I do anymore. I don't drive it. I might get up to the speed limit every once in a while. I drive slowly anymore. Got that old man syndrome. So the people took him. He didn't. Justified. So he says that obedience is better than sacrifice. Now he's going to tell us what obedience and sacrifices and disobedience is. For 23rd verse, for rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft, and stubbornness is as iniquity and idolatry, because thou hast rejected the word of the Lord, he hath rejected thee from being king. 26th verse, and Samuel said unto Saul, I will not return with thee, for thou hast rejected the word of the Lord, and the Lord hath rejected thee from being king over Israel. 35th verse, the latter part of it, the Lord repented that he had made Saul king over Israel. Now we're seeing a king, the first one, come to power. When he got to power, it was an utter downhill slope, and he went downhill from there. Now what's God going to do? God has a man that won't listen to him. God had a man as a king that wouldn't be obedient to him. Now he's still king. Now God is going to go to work now while Saul is still king. So he calls Samuel over. We're at the 16th chapter. And the Lord said unto Samuel, first verse, how long wilt thou mourn for Saul, seeing I have rejected him from reigning over Israel? Fill thy horn with oil, and go, I will send thee to Jesse's house. Now, Saul is king. God said, that's it. Shut him off. I'm going to let him stay out there. But now, I want you to get a horn of oil and go to Jesse's house. And I'm going to pick out the one that's going to be king over Israel. Now Samuel says, if Saul finds out about this, he'll kill me. How am I going to do it? God said, get you a heifer. And take that heifer and go on to where Jesse's at and tell everybody, I'm going to make a sacrifice. Call Jesse and his sons, sanctify them, invite them to the sacrifice. When they get there, I'm going to pick me out a man. So, there are 7 sons that came along with Jesse. He lined them all up. And remember that Saul was a head taller with a great physique and a mighty warrior. God's not looking for that now. Man always looks on the outside. I used to see guys that would pump iron and gigantic muscles. And I'd see those guys in a fight, somebody that weighed about 160, 70 pounds, was about 6 foot, 6'1", with little skinny arms. I mean, wear them muscle-bound fellas out. Deceiving. I've been on the receiving end of some of that. I don't know whether you have or not. They can stand here and hit you way over there. Old long arms, lean. So they lined them up. Samuel and Jesse thought they found the one. Surely this is the one, the Elvis. And God said, Came to the next one. God said, Then God said to him, don't look on his countenance. Don't look on his outward appearance. Because I'm not a man. I don't look on the outside. I look inside. I want what's inside that man. I know what's inside that man. So he went through all 7 of them. You think Samuel would have got the message, but he didn't. He starts all over again. Jesse said, you better take another look, because I know that you've overlooked. So he lines them up. They go. God said, Samuel said, Jesse, do you have any more boys? He said, I got a little scrub down in the pasture. So I got a scrub down there that's with the sheep. Well, now surely God would not want a scrub. Surely God would want somebody that was a mighty man of valor. So he sent down for him. And he came up. And God said, that's him. They said he was a beautiful man. He was a pretty boy. Was he good looking? Didn't have any scars on him. Didn't have any blemishes on him. He's just a pretty boy. His brothers really didn't like him, and we're going to see this later on. They didn't have any time for him, David. So Samuel takes the horn of oil, and he pours it all over him. Now he has just anointed him king when they still got a king. Now note this. It said when he poured the oil on him that the Holy Spirit came up on him from there on. And then there's something happened when he was anointed king. It says the Holy Spirit came off of Saul, and God sent an evil spirit upon Saul. Whew. Have you figured God out yet? I don't even want to try. I'm not on his level. I can't see what God sees. I don't know what God knows. But I know this. He's got him a program. Eddie, of you, I call Kenny Eddie all the time. Kenny, have you ever had anybody work for you that asked you every nail you was going to drive and every board you was going to cut, well, what are you going to do now? What are you going to do now? I was building a guy a race car. I cut the front end off of it, and I could see this all in my mind before it ever took place. And he said, what are you doing? And I spent about 2 days, we'd go through this every day. And he'd say, well, how are you going to get that working? Finally, I told him, I said, Richard, just watch me. Just watch me. I can't explain it to you. I said, you'll see it develop as we go along, and you'll see a finished product, and you'll know how it got done. I said, man, you're wearing me out asking me how I'm going to do it. I need to do it, and you get it. So that's the same thing with God. I don't know the mind of God. I don't know tomorrow or 10 years from now. I don't know. He does. It's my job to listen to him as he instructs and follow in the direction and not try to get ahead of it. So the Spirit of God came off of one and went on the other. Now God's peculiar. how he works. So what he sent an evil spirit upon Saul. David has been anointed king. How in the world is he going to get David to be recognized as king? The only one that really knows this is Samuel and God. Nobody else knows. This evil spirit that came, man, it would tear Saul up. So one of his servants, or several of his servants, said to him, what you need is somebody that can play string music, can play the harp. One of the servants said, you know, I know where there's a guy that can really play the harp. They came and they told Saul. He said, send him down there. Get a hold of that fellow. Man, I'm going crazy. Isn't God wonderful? Amen. Gets David now. Saul don't know. David knows. And he brings him up. And every time the evil spirit would come on him, man, David whipped that harp out. He would play that music, and then he'd just be settled down. That's better than nerve people. That's better than Valium. Percocet, Percodan. That's all I know. I would go further. I mean, this is great stuff. So, we're going to quit right there. I've been here about 45 minutes. This is nothing. It'd take me 2 hours and 45 minutes to get there. I thought I'd go faster, but I can't. I'm so glad you came tonight. Amen. Wednesday night at 7 o'clock, we're starting in a new book, in the book of Timothy. This is the book of the preachers. Timothy is a young preacher. Paul took him under his arm. Paul had won him to the Lord. Paul takes him under his arm and he instructs him and he sends him out to minister. And he gives him instructions what a minister is supposed to do. How he's supposed to preach, what he's supposed to preach, when he's supposed to preach, how things are conducted with a preacher, and the responsibility of a preacher in regards to the congregation that he's got, and how that congregation needs to act in church and act out of church. Have you ever had any problem with acting? Well, you don't act like a Christian to me. Well, how's a Christian supposed to act? I haven't figured that one out yet. Sometimes I know that I act like I'm not a Christian. How about you? Have you ever heard anybody say to you, and you call yourself a Christian? I've even had it said to me, and you call yourself a preacher? That burns me. The devil wants it to. Yeah. He wants a reaction. For every action, there's a reaction. Let's stand together and we'll read something else.